Hello, everybody. My name is Mango Thunderslice. Hope you're having a great day today. It's hot as balls out here in Sacramento, and all I can say is thank God for AC and whoever the guy was who invented AC. Thank God for creating that guy because he really killed it. All right, so today's a message for the whole world as well as for President Trump if he happens to hear it. Yeah, basically, is Trump draining the swamp or is the swamp draining Trump? Kind of an open question at this point. Lots of opinions on the matter, but in any case, I love this image. It tickles me in some way. All right, so moving on. All right, so it's pretty crazy, right? The summer of rage has begun. It's already begun, and now it's kind of accelerating. Okay, there's just so much anger and hatred in the people of the world, and it's really reaching a crescendo, and something needs to happen to nullify it. We can keep trying to play this fight fire with fire game, but in case you've ever tried, fire doesn't put out fire, okay? You have to put out fire with water. You have to neutralize the anger. You cannot just throw more anger at it or the fire will build, okay? And so Mr. Trump, there's lots of things that I appreciate what you've done so far as president. There's other things which are very alarming and concerning. But suffice to say that, we still have a major opportunity to create some beautiful, beautiful positive change in America. And, but basically we have to address this, that we are in in a de facto civil war right now. I mean, between, it's all this violence. People were so afraid of this violence on a part of Trump supporters going against people of color and stuff. But, a lot of the complete opposite has been happening. But that's kind of besides the point. The point is that we don't have an American narrative anymore, and it's tearing us apart. So basically, the summer of rage has begun, and we need to cast some magic to neutralize this nonsense. All right, we got this James Hodgkinson guy who shot Representative Steve Scalise, Republican congressman. And yeah, this is a great cartoon. This just explains everything. Who's crazy here? Yeah. Anyway, James Hodgkinson, kind of a typical progressive, at least on the surface, supports things about global warming, was a Bernie Sanders supporter, hates Republicans, loves Rachel Maddow, Russia, 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 blah, blah, blah. All right. But, so on the surface, he was just a normal blue teamer, but for some reason, he just snapped. And they said that he didn't have a history of radical political beliefs, but I guess he was just there was some other things about his character. And so this article, basically, he was an abusive alcoholic. He had a foster daughter, and she unfortunately overdosed on heroin when she was 26 a few years ago. And this guy, just look at his eyes, okay? I mean, without trying to just judge this guy, look at those eyes, okay? Those are soulless eyes. Those are the eyes of like James Alefantis and John Podesta and all these people who are just so deeply inured within the matrix that basically they don't even perceive suffering as like a real thing. To them, everything is, we're all just meat sacks. And that's what those eyes say to me. You guys can let me know what they say to you. And this was his foster daughter, a younger photo of her. It's really sad. Okay, for just to summarize really quickly, her biological mom had a boyfriend who was abusing her, and she unfortunately got rescued, quote unquote, by the Child Protective Services and given over to the Hodgkinsons, this guy. And unfortunately, the abuse continued. She lived a very, very painful life. Her obituary said she lived a life mixed with human suffering and laughter. So she at least she managed to find a sense of humor. But my point here is that basically this guy was not just some typical blue teamer. He had suffering from a lot of mental problems, and the thing about abuse of children is a lot of times the people who abuse children themselves were abused when they were children. So the cycle keeps continuing and repeating itself. And the cycle normally just keeps repeating itself unless we physically stop it and we take responsibility for the actions, not just of ourselves, but the actions of others. And that's called being a superhuman. Okay, so door number one is that this surface story is exactly what it appears to be. This guy was just on the surface a blue teamer, but beneath the surface he was really mentally troubled, dealing with a lot of trauma and recreating that trauma on his foster children. But the other door number two is that this guy was another MK Ultra plant. That basically, as I've talked about in other videos, the Orlando shooting last year, I'll put a little tag link into those videos where I talk all about the MK Ultra program and how basically these intelligence agencies and these satanic cults, they're Loctite. They're on the same team. So that's something to understand, that these intelligence agencies and these satanic cults all over America, all over the world, are 100% on the same team. They are lockstep, moving in cahoots with one another. And it's the same with, like, the intelligence agencies have links with the mafia too. I mean, I hate to reference fictional movies, but go watch any of the mob movies, okay, that have been made by Hollywood. There's always a federal connection of the guy at the top, because the CIA and the other intelligence agencies have allied themselves with the mafia of various sorts when they need dirty work done. So this guy may very well have been an MK Ultra plant. There's really no definitive proof that I'm aware of, other than just the circumstances are very, very resonant with other, MK Ultra victims. And, this guy is ultimately responsible for what he did, but for the life that he's lived. But the actual act of shooting may have been programmed, just like the guy at the, a lot of these MK Ultra people, they'll make sure to kill them during the act, because otherwise, if they survive, they get asked about the event later on, and they're like, I don't even remember shooting anybody. I was in a trance, because just like in Zoolander, relax, go do it, right? It activates their subconscious programming, and they engage the program that has been instilled in them. So, that's one thing, whether it's MK Ultra, whether it's just the surface story, this is messed up, okay? This is a very, very bad sign of what the mental state of the American people is right now, at least in certain sectors, all right? And beyond that, what's actually more disturbing to me than this guy shooting a congressman is actually the fact that there's crazy people in this country who are actually trying to defend it, okay? I believe this guy probably was MK Ultra. That's I don't have any proof for that, but he probably was. But I mean, this person is not MK Ultra, or at least not in the sense of direct MK Ultra, trauma-based mind control. This is just a regular crazy person, all right, at one of these crazy universities, all right. I mean, look at this stuff. This is incredible. Like, how does this person not get arrested? How is this person allowed to attend a university? And a professor, for God's sake, the inventor of DNA can't come to the United States and talk to a college audience about science because he has unpolitically correct views on race. I mean, it's just insane, all right? And, basically, there's also the fact that Steve Scalise, the guy who was shot, was totally on the team of the White Hats and part of this revolution taking place inside our government to eliminate the human trafficking networks and the satanic pedophilia taking place at the highest levels of American political power. Okay, so this guy is totally on the team of the light side. All right, his video is all about how, children, if we can agree on anything, it's that we should protect children, and that this is just far more important than any just trite, divisive, political bullshit. And that's 100% a valid point. And it's very sad that this man was shot. And of course, Jeff Sessions, a couple weeks before that, called on law enforcement to help combat human trafficking. And, it's funny, people are freaking out about Sessions and his comments about weed, about cannabis. All right, I work in the cannabis industry. You think I'm worried about Jeff Sessions coming out to California and taking the weed? Forget about it. All right, this man is doing the work of God. He is doing great work, and I support him. And I am very much looking forward to when we can take down the big fish, all right? And I believe that we are almost there. But the hard part is is that it's mutually assured blackmail, okay? The majority of the government is compromised. It may not all be satanic pedophilia, but it might all, whether it's drugs or arms or some affiliation with gangs, or he's got some homosexual lover in the back room or whatever. The point is, most of the government has mutually assured blackmail. They are compromised. They are morally caught between a rock and a hard place, because when everyone has their hand in the cookie jar, everyone's doing bad stuff. It's really hard to call out one, because it starts a chain reaction. It can take down the government. And all of this, of course, is tied to not just the game board within America, but the larger game board of the world. These rat lines are not just inside of America, they're going all over the world. And that brings me to this, okay? It's a risky situation, right? The board game Risk. I don't know if you guys ever played this game as a kid. I did a lot. In America as kids, we play games about how to take over the world. I love this game. And anyway, one of the things you learn while playing the Risk board game is that Asia is the biggest prize. If you can control Asia, you're probably going to win the game. The only thing that sucks is Asia is insanely hard to control because it borders everything except for South America, I guess. And, one of the hardest parts you realize in trying to hold Asia is this freaking place right here, the Middle East, all right? Because it borders Europe in two places, at least in the board game. It borders Africa, it borders, the rest of Asia. So it's very hard to defend because it's so central to a lot of things. And, not just in the board game, but this is also a reason why this area is so strategically violent and why there's so many power plays going on. All right. And so moving into the macro, we've got very shady stuff happening, like a NATO jet buzzing the Russian defense minister's plane, coming within a few feet. The Russian jet had to show off its missiles to be like, hey, you better back off or I'm going to blow you out of the sky, bro. And basically then he backed off. But very threatening, behavior is just, again, showing the desperation of the sad quacks that run the organization known as the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, aka NATO. And, there's other stuff like the U.S.-led coalition shooting down a Syrian warplane. This was not a NATO plane. This was a U.S. plane. And so the Syrian Democratic Forces, which is basically the Kurds, they were supposedly, the Syrians say that they were attacking ISIS. The U.S., the Department of Defense says that they were protecting the Kurds. All right, and you can see how fractured the country still is, even despite the fact that the Syrian government and the Russians took Aleppo. There's obviously still other cities that are not under control, and the Syrian government actually controls a minority of the country right now. Even if most of the cities are out here, this is all just a bunch of desert. There's nothing out there, except for ISIS. Basically there's that. And then there's this. Mr. Trump, all right, what the hell is going on here? Video emerges of U.S. allowing ISIS fighters to escape safely in Syria. WTF, bro? And there's this video of just these ISIS fighters flying their flag, and who's the cameraman is what I'm wondering. Like, how does this guy just, hang out in the middle of the desert, filming these ISIS convoys going by? But, so this is very strange. And so on the surface, it's very, very alarming because it seems like we're continuing the foreign policy of George Bush and Barack Obama, this, covert, just destruction and nation building BS. And, what's the deal, Mr. Trump? I'm not going to make any excuses right now, but I am, based my thesis today, part of my main thesis is that there is more going on here than meets the eye, and it's not just about destroying ISIS, of course. ISIS was created by the United States, as Mr. Trump pointed out during the campaign, that Barack Obama and Hillary Clinton are the co-founders of ISIS. And, that was a great part of the campaign, as far as I'm concerned. But anyway, going on, ISIS is a creation. ISIS is a strategic tool, okay? And just because Trump is in there doesn't mean that ISIS ceases to be a strategic tool. You can't, once you're deep in the 7th level of hell, you can't just take the elevator back into heaven. You got to fight your way back through the levels of hell. And so that's what I feel like Trump is trying to do, trying to strategically reposition forces in the Middle East, achieve a détente, a strategic ceasefire with the Russian and Chinese proxy, forces, whether it's Iran, or basically any of the countries that are allied with Russia and China, and of course the Western proxies. Okay, and it looks like it's coming into existence along the Euphrates. That there may even be a new Kurdish state. And part of this is getting ISIS out. And of course, there were U.S. commanders, there were Israeli commanders, Turkish commanders, Saudi commanders, right? They were in bed with ISIS, and they were serving as operational command, which is why when I think it was last year, Russia blew up one of the ISIS bases, and the U.S. freaked out. This is when Obama was still president, of course, and basically because where the Russians blew up was not just ISIS fighters, a bunch of Muslims. It was basically the Israeli commanders and U.S. commanders got blown up, and so the U.S. couldn't get mad about it on the surface, but they got really mad about it and tried to hide the reason because they've been supporting this. And Mr. Trump, it's obvious that you're still wheeling and dealing with something with these guys, but it's got to stop, okay? Because we all can see it. All right, the emperor has no clothes, and it's best if you just acknowledge that basically you're not going to fool us. So the best you can do is work to create the best solution and hope that we'll stay with you, because as long as we see progress, then we probably will. Okay, so Qatar is really the bellwether here, not just Syria. I don't think Syria is a good bellwether of what's happening in the Middle East. I think that if you really want to see what's going on here in terms of the strategic shifts, you got to look at Qatar, however the hell you pronounce it. I don't know. So Qatar all of a sudden is on the shit list of all the Gulf cooperating countries because supposedly they're funding terrorists, right? Like, which is hilarious because they're all funding terrorists. Pot calling the kettle black if ever there was one. But basically, the hidden reason that people are speculating that Qatar is now kind of everyone's bitch is the petro yuan. Okay, so Qatar is thinking basically they share a natural gas field with Iran, and basically, from Qatar they call it the North Field, and from Iran they call it the South Pars Field. But it's the same field, and they just share it, right? And so, if you're looking at Syria, and there's all these people in the alt media saying, "Oh my goodness, it's about to be World War III, World War III," and when Hillary Clinton was potentially going to be the president, I was very, very concerned about World War III too. But I don't think that you can really justifiably get crazy upset and warning everyone about World War III just because, some of this stuff in Syria, even the ISIS stuff, there's more going on behind the surface, and none of us really know. All we can do is just speculate, but. It's best to leave emotion at the door when you're speculating based on limited information. So they share this natural gas field with Iran. Qatar does, right? And who is helping Qatar extract that natural gas? That's right. Oh, yeah, these guys, ExxonMobil. ExxonMobil has partnered with Qatar Petroleum to develop the North Field, the world's largest non-associated natural gas field. Okay, so that's interesting because wasn't there an executive from ExxonMobil who's now in the White House? Oh, yeah, this guy, Rex Tillerson. What's up, bro? And Rex Tillerson was an executive at Exxon, and now he's the Secretary of State of the United States. And so this, again, if you really wanted to see the strategic developments going on in the Middle East, this is far more significant than, a shooting down of a Syrian jet, even as alarming as that sounds. Right? U.S. rebukes Saudi Arabia over Qatar embargo in reversal after Trump comment. So right after everybody started saying Qatar's supporting terrorists, Trump kind of tweeted and jumped on the bandwagon, only to reverse himself when Mr. Trump, I presume you sat down with Mattis and some of the other guys in the military, and they reminded you of the strategic scenario, and basically all of a sudden the U.S. is protecting Qatar. I mean, both because the U.S. has an air base there, right? There's lots of strategic investments that the empire has made all over the Middle East, and Qatar is definitely in bed with the West. So the fact that they are, sharing a natural gas field with Iran, and they're using ExxonMobil to help extract it. So basically, ExxonMobil, whose executive is now the Secretary of State, is now basically helping extract the natural gas from Iran. And the reason that Qatar is supposed to be everybody's pissed off at Qatar is because they have made a decision to basically, instead of send their natural gas west, right? Because that was the whole thing with Syria, was that there was a pipeline that was going to go from Qatar through Saudi Arabia, through Iraq and Syria, up through Turkey to Europe. Okay, that was the plan. And it was Bashar al-Assad's resistance to that plan that many have speculated on quite logical and valid grounds that was the reason for the United States and the Western powers sponsoring the rebel fighters, aka paid terrorists, to overthrow his government. And that was the whole genesis of ISIS, right? So basically, the fact that Qatar is basically on the shit list now means they have made a decision. And part of that is basically sending their natural gas east, okay? Basically, they possibly at some point will be priced in yuan. And of course, all of you should be aware of the petrodollar, that basically the foundation of the American empire's power is based on the pricing of oil and natural gas in dollars by the major oil producers. So if Exxon is helping Qatar extract natural gas in partnership with Iran and send it in a pipeline to be priced in yuan, the entire game has changed and the petrodollar is no longer an operating standard of the American empire. So this is a huge shift. And again, I think that the stuff happening in Syria is really just kind of fireworks to distract from the real shifts, which, and the question is, why would you want to distract from such a beneficial development? Well, because the more that Trump wants to get cozy with Russia is the more that the left goes into freaking crazy mode, and they try and impeach him on completely fabricated grounds, right? And this $110 billion arms deal with the Saudis, everybody in the alt media is freaking out about, all libertarians cracking up about it, just losing their shit. All right, but Trump doesn't make deals for no reason. Okay, he gets something if he gives something. So, Mr. Trump, I don't know what you got for this 110 billion, but I'm imagining it has something to do with the Saudi priorities going forward, and maybe their cooperation with the Russians as far as oil goes. And guys, Saudis and Russia are two of the major oil producers. So there's major shifts happening, and if you only look at the surface details, you're liable to think like the crazy manic left and just oh my God, Trump's just evil. All right, but there's more going on. You got to use your brain, and you got to turn off the emotion for just a second to see what's really going on. So what's happening? Why would these shifts be coming along unless something major was happening to coordinate it? And that is exactly what's happening. A new kid in town, the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. In my video about Islam and Zionism, I talked about why the empire wants to eliminate all possible competitors to its imperial structure, ruled by the Triple Crown of Rome, London, and Washington, D.C., and they want to nullify and prevent the existence of competitors like these guys. The Shanghai Cooperation Organization started in 2001, mainly just China and Russia and Stan, all the Stans, Uzbekistan, Kazakhstan, anyway, and India and Pakistan are now part of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. This is huge because India and Pakistan are rival nuclear powers, okay? They've been fighting for a long time with the Hindus and the Sikhs and the Muslims, and it's all craziness. All right, and all of a sudden, India and Pakistan are joining. And so why would India and Pakistan set aside their differences to join up with, this organization? Well, because the economic benefits are major, and the Belt and Road Initiative. Okay, so Russia and China and the SCO are planning to build a series of corridors, series of highways and trade routes that basically Shanghai Cooperation Organization, Belt and, here we go. Okay, so yeah, what the United States did in the 50s, basically building the interstate highway system allowed, as crappy as those highways are now, okay, it allowed the transmission of people and goods all over the United States and allowed America to basically fulfill the power of the continental landmass that they had been that they had given or taken, rather. But China is basically looking to do that with the entire Eurasian landmass, okay? This is going to connect billions of people to major trade lines, and it's going to bring billions of people out of poverty, and it's going to make lives better for those billions of people, and that is amazing, and it should happen, and nothing should stand in its way, including the United States, Mr. Trump. But I don't have to be real aggressive because I think you know what the score is. I think you know where the state of the game is. And I think that you're on board with this plan and that you're just trying to negotiate the best settlement for, our team, if you will. Okay. So yeah, India and Pakistan joining up. This is huge. Rival nuclear powers, especially because India and Pakistan are both pretty historically cozy to the West. Pakistan, as I've talked about, this is where the heroin from Afghanistan comes through the Khyber Pass into Pakistan, flies over to Turkey, and then goes into Europe and the Western market. So Pakistan is intimately connected with the rat lines and, the drug trade. And so, again, if these kind of shifts are happening, it's the sign of something major taking place beneath the surface. All right, and here's another article from Zero Hedge, Leading the Multipolar Revolution, how Russia and China are creating a new world order, a new world order. And as I said in the Zionism and Islam video, okay, the Triple Crown is the modern Roman Empire that never fell. It just devolved its temporal governing sectors, and basically they're all headed still by the Pope and the Vatican, right? But now a new world order is coming into being, right? The new world order, as we've known it, was the plan of the Triple Crown to basically, subjugate Russia, subjugate China, unite everyone in this world communist dictatorship and a world pseudo-religion, and everybody just gets a guaranteed minimum income and everybody can just, live in communist global utopia. Woohoo! Anyway, so the Chinese Belt and Road Initiative, these guys, China and Russia, are majorly changing the game, okay? And the amount of countries coming on board is now, like, the tide has turned. And this is why Trump won the election. This is why he's trying to be cozy to Russia. It's because a new world order is being formed, and it's a hell of a lot better than the old one, right? Okay, so going over to the interactive map, this is pretty much what the SCO looked like, for most of its existence from 2001 up until a few years ago. Right, China, Russia, the stands, and so basically the Triple Crown's plan was to encircle Russia and China, put some, missile defense over here, some missile defense over here, maybe a dozen military bases right here, and their plan was to encircle Russia and China and basically put pressure on them economically and militarily in order to subjugate them. But that is not what has happened. Okay, since that. Let's see, Mongolia has become observer status. That's Thailand. Cambodia's in there. India and Pakistan now joined. Iran, of course, is in there. And, the empire, not only did they not want India and Pakistan in there, they wanted to take out Iran. And so they could really encircle them. But didn't happen. Iran's still around. India, Pakistan are in there. Afghanistan, despite its occupation by the U.S. military, actually, I think is observer status. Iraq has talked about joining. Even Turkey, who's a member of NATO, all right, is basically, now partnering up with Russia. It was interesting after that coup that happened last year in Turkey. Things shifted, and all of a sudden, Erdogan, whatever his name is, was all of a sudden really friendly to Putin. All right, and so let's zoom in a little bit because I can't really see the borders here. All right, so we got the SCO here. And so now these countries basically all part of it. All right, even Saudi Arabia, is now talking about, working with the Russians. Okay, that was after Trump's visit. So things are changing. All right, Syria. All right, Syria has been the battleground. They wanted this pipeline to go from Qatar up through Saudi Arabia, up through Iraq, boom, ba-da-loom, to Turkey, and then to Europe, okay? So that's why the fighting's been going on in Syria, okay? So Qatar now all of a sudden everybody hates all the Gulf countries are like, what's your deal, bro? Because Qatar just basically made a decision to extract gas from the shared North Field with Iran and send it through a pipeline east, potentially to be priced in yuan. Okay, so if Qatar does that, if Qatar has made that decision, do you know what that means? Do you realize what that means? It means that the book is closed on Syria, all right? And Syria has applied to be part of the SCO. Assad's rule has been cemented with the fall of Aleppo. And despite the crazy ISIS shenanigans that are still going on, it's very likely based on Qatar's decision that the book is sealed on Syria and it will not be overthrown. There may be a political solution in which Bashar al-Assad steps down, but he won't go the Gaddafi route, okay? He won't be dragged through the street and sodomized by bayonets. All right, this is a messed up world we're living in. I don't like to talk about it, but it's very important, so it's important for everybody to know. Egypt is part of the SCO, or applying. Jordan is applying to be part of the SCO. Israel is applying to be part of the SCO. You know that that the pitch was really good if Israel is joining the SCO, because even Israel sees that the benefit outweighs the cost. And now, okay, what are we looking at? And Yemen, is not an industrial country as far as I know, but they're allied with Iran. I don't even know what goes on in Oman. But so now all of a sudden, this is looking very different. Who controls the North? Who owns the North, right? Who owns Saudi Arabia? Who owns the Middle East right here? It's looking very much like the SCO has won the game in Asia and is holding the Middle East, okay? Where the U.S. since 9/11 has tried to take this region, it does not appear to have worked. The United States empire did not have the gumption to complete the job, and thank God for that. Okay, Sri Lanka's in there. So, and here's the thing. This is basically it. Again, if you can control Asia, the Asian landmass, you have control of most of the resources in the world. And the linchpin is the Middle East. And it very much looks like these guys, through the alliance known as the SCO, have done it. And of course, as China becomes more of a service economy, its industrial manufacturing is going to go to Myanmar. It's going to go to Thailand. It's going to go to Laos. It's going to go to Vietnam. All right. And so, and Indonesia, okay? China's basically been making strategic partnerships all over Africa as well. So this is not going away. And Trump knows it. The Israelis know it. The Egyptians know it. Even the Saudis know it. All right. And that is the state of the game. And that's why these power lines are shifting and why Syria will not be overthrown despite the fireworks. Okay. And the rat lines, all right, all over the world are being shut down. North Korea all of a sudden just said that it's willing to come to the table, and they have said this before, all right? They're total liars. But the point that they even said that they are willing to come to the table, even the fact that they're liars doesn't matter because it means that they want something or they need something. If they don't need something, they at least really want something, which implies that the pressure put on them by Trump, as well as Putin, as well as President Xi of China, have actually achieved an effect. And we'll see what comes out of this. After the American prisoner was released in a coma and then he died. Like obviously, feelings aren't feeling very good towards North Korea and America. But this right here, again, setting aside the emotion, is a very positive development. I'm still of the belief that a war may take place on the Korean Peninsula if Kim Jong-un doesn't get on board with the global monetary reset. And again, I think this is what this is all about, that Kim Jong-un is being told that he needs to get on board because a major, major global shift is coming that will totally reconfigure the world reserve currency on this planet, possibly even retying it to gold, because that is what a currency looks like that is good for civilization, that allows us to build real things that make people happy and allow them to live their lives with more joy and raise families and have a productive life. And that's what it's about. Okay, enough of the war, enough of the fighting. It's time not for a summer of violence, not for a summer of rage, but for a summer and 100 years, 1,000 years of peace. All right, Unrig. All right. Robert David Steele and Cynthia McKinney. Robert David Steele, ex-CIA, Cynthia McKinney, ex-Congresswoman, fantastic specimens of human beings doing amazing work. Mr. Trump, you should be on board with Unrig, all right? You campaigned on the basis that we live in a rigged political system, and you're 100% right. And it's because you spoke to us as people, and we heard that message, and we trusted that you would operate in good faith to fulfill the promises that you made during the campaign. And we know you made a lot of promises. Not all of them are going to get kept, but this one, you can't renege on, Mr. Trump. And furthermore, if you can do this, if you can throw water on the fire, not just fire, throwing red meat to the conservatives will only appease the conservatives, okay? If you can bring America together, you will be known as the greatest American president in American history, okay? And the way to do that is unrig, baby. Unrig the system, all right? Common enemy is the deep state. All right, common solution, election reform, so we can actually get the good people, not the lobbyists, not the lawyers, not the scum. We want the cream to rise to the top, not the scum, all right? And the only way we do that is election reform, all right? We the people are united for integrity with the leaders in our government, because if we don't get that, then we're going to take it down one way or another, okay? So we'd like to have honest and ethical leaders, Mr. Trump. And again, I'm very proud of the things you've been doing, but there's a lot more good. There's miles to go before you sleep, all right? And you know that. And again, we are working with you to bring us home to Valhalla and achieve this paradise on this planet. But this is where we're at. Mr. Trump, get on board with Unrig, because if you can, you will throw water on the fire. This will not be a summer of rage. It will be a summer of peace. And we will be able to build something very, very amazing on the basis of that peace. And America will not splinter in a civil war, but will come together again, and we will have a new renaissance in this country. And I'm very excited about that. So wholeness and balanced vibrations to you, the people of planet Earth, as well as you, Mr. Trump. And we'll see where we go from here. Wholeness and balanced vibrations. Cheers.